The stars above the twins melted into a silver-gray dawn, and from the last wet haze of morning, the riverlands breathed a lonely mist. Robb Stark clawed back to consciousness inch by inch, his fingers sunk in chill mud, his mind a scarlet smear of broken memories. The loudest beat in him was no heartbeat at all, but the echo of Grey Wind's death howl, endlessly unraveling across his ribs like a claw. Pain gathered behind his eyes, pain in every muscle, pain filling out the shape of his name. Robb, King in the North. Oathbreaker. Betrayed. Alive? He tasted river water. Light salt from a weeping cut at the edge of his mouth mingled with cold green murk. Somewhere behind the murk lay music, the grotesque strings of the wedding feast, knives clattering on trestles. Fray girls squealing false delight, the sudden bray of war horns, inside a hall dressed for forgiveness. Robb shoved the horrors aside, crawling toward a stand of alder at the water's shoulder. Each motion screamed. His armor was gone, his doublet hacked open, the wool about his left side crusted stiff with drying blood. He could not yet remember how the wound had been made. He knew only that its heat had kept him alive through night's frost. Beneath the altar, the mud became a mat of dead sedge and tawny reeds. Something glimmered among them, a pin of black iron wrought like a wolf's head flattened under a heel. He stared at it stupidly, thinking it an omen, or the final joke of the gods, before fumbling it into his palm and closing trembling fingers around the token of his past self. The sedge whispered as dawn wind licked across the riverbanks. Somewhere a crow laughed. The world, Robb realized, had refused to bury him properly. It had coughed him back onto its shore like a blasphemy. He did not know how long he crawled. Time dissolved into overlapping impressions of winter-hurt reeds and the clay taste of fear. The river curved into view again, and beside a willow stump an overturned cask rested, thrown ashore by flood or raiders. Its belly held a slosh of rainwater, and though foul with leaves, it promised a reflection. Robb forced himself upright on one knee, leaned until his face hovered above the rancid mirror, and saw a stranger. Pale, hollow-cheeked, beard half-grown and thick with grime, hair matted dark auburn by sweat and dried blood. Gray eyes, wide and disbelieving, that had looked on too much death. No crown, no direwolf cloak. Only a torn riding cloak of brown wool spattered the color of old copper. He studied the ragged figure, and it returned his gaze with equal judgment until the tremor in his arms gave way, and he nearly toppled. Enough, he thought. Later, you may grieve. Now you must move. He stripped the cloak's lower half, binding it tight about his ribs to stanch the wound. Each pull knifed him anew. He found a branch fallen from the alder and whittled an awkward walking staff. Then he set a single destination in his skull, east. The King's Road lay east of the twins, and along it, villages. Villages meant food, silent barns, bandages, rumor. Perhaps even maesters daring enough to treat a half-a-dead wolf if his silver held its tongue. He had none, but the illusion consoled him. By the third mile, the ache in his side waxed to a livid brand, leaking fresh warmth. He pressed harder on the cloak bandage, grinding his teeth. Once he thought he heard hooves behind, spurred riders sloshing through grass, and he flung himself beneath a fallen birch, panting. But the hooves belonged only to memory. The mounted archers who had fired into his men as the Frey guards barred the hall doors. Caitlyn's scream drifted across his mind. A wooden mannequin's head, his own, jerked under a storm of bolts. Air left him in a sob. He turned into a hiss. When the horizon pinked toward midday, Robb found a sheepfold on a sloping pasture. The flock had fled, or been stolen, for neither shape nor bleat met his eyes. Yet the shepherd's bothy still stood. He shoved the door aside and collapsed on straw that stank of lanolin and mold, letting darkness take him. Dreams lunged. Feasts turned to slaughter. Betrothal songs to shouts of, "The young wolf is dead." He dreamed of Riverrun's walls burning, of Grey Wind trying to reach him through dagger-thick crowds. He dreamed of Arya's small, fierce grin when she sparred with Bran, of Sansa singing as direwolves howled. He dreamed of Talisa bathing the wounds of the dying, and then he dreamed of nothing until late sun spilled gold through the bothy's boarded slats. A shadow fell across the gap. Someone at the door. Robb's eyes flew open. He had no sword, no shield, only his staff, and the half-mended branch of his will. The door creaked. An old woman in a patched russet gown stepped within, her arms piled high with dead wood. Her eyes, as brown as tilled earth, widened at the sight of the half-garmored man on her straw. Before she could shriek, Robb whispered, "Peace, mother. I am wounded, nothing more." "Bedsand hen." She stared a long moment, assessing the mud-caked cloak he pressed to his side, the hollowness of cheeks that once would have borne a king's flush. At last, she set down the firewood. "There is no peace for deserters," she muttered, but her tone blurred at its edges. "Nor coin for mercy." "My coin is spent," Robb said, "yet mercy yields its own." She sniffed. Big words for a broken fox. "Show me." When she peeled away the cloak pad, her breath hissed. The gash beneath ran wicked and deep, half sown by coagulated blood. "Deep but clean," she said, more to herself than to him. Blade slid between ribs and missed the lung. "Lucky. Luckier still you did not drown in your own wet." Robb's laugh rasped. "The stranger has been courting me a while. And spurned, it seems. Lie back." She fetched spindle and gut thread from a leather purse, a skin of thick blue wine, and a small clay bowl of pinkish salve. "Maester's dust and cheap tallow," she explained. "Healed my gwern last winter when a boar opened him from hip to navel. Sit still." She poured wine over the wound. It burned like wildfire. He clenched the straw between his teeth, biting until taste of dust filled his mouth. Then the needle entered and exited flesh, precise as a riverman sewing nets. Her hands never trembled. When she finished, she bound him with a strip of bleached linen smelling of lye smoke. "Sleep now," she told him. Yet he could not close his eyes. Guilt roared too loud. "What village is this?" "No village. Pastures west of Fairmarket. If the gods haven't moved the river overnight. My name is Raella." "Robb," he began, then faltered at the folly of truth. "Robb Rivers," he lied. "Thank you, Raella. I owe you." "Them Samuel. Rivers pay in labor," she said. "Tomorrow you chop what wood my shoulders cannot." Then she closed the door behind her, leaving him with the sweet scent of tallow and a wound that no longer bled. In the hush, Robb sunk into Straw's scratch and tried to recall the contours of a future. But every road north or south glimmered with spears. He drifted. The following days blurred into small tasks. He fetched water from a rill, chopped alder limbs, stacked wood, mended a broken sheep pen gate with rusty nails. Raella's cottage lay a league further upslope, where a lane of crushed shell once led traders to Fairmarket before war churned the dike to muck. No bannerman rode the lane now, only tithing crows. Twice, distant columns of smoke curled on the horizon, the work of pillagers, mutineers, or broken men. Yet none troubled the bothy. Robb mended strength by candle and dawnlight, and Raella fretted that his appetite ate more than her stores, though pride lit her eyes each time he stood straighter. On the seventh dawn, wind shifted. Faint thunder rolled out of the east. "Hooves," Raella murmured, frowning. Robb's blood ran chill. "King's men, or sellswards or worse." She pressed a bundle of bread and dried apples into his hands. "You'll not die here." He stared. "I have naught but this gown and field. The wolves never harmed me." "Go," Robb swallowed. "Come with me. We can." She shook her head, smile cracked. "I have lived through 5 winters, 3 kings, and 2 husbands." "Go." He clasped her hand. "I will not forget you." Then he slipped from the pasture into the alder brake and did not look back until the bothy vanished behind rising ground. 3 days he walked southeast, skirting war-blighted homesteads. Once he glimpsed 5 armored riders wearing dun cloaks and half-cloaked shields, the paint scrubbed away. They combed stubble fields with spear butts. Robb hid in a sinkhole until they passed, heart roaring. Another evening, as orange light smeared the sky, he found the wreck of a wagon overturned in a ditch. Its driver lay close, throat cut, a rusty crossbow bolt buried in his spine. Robb took the man's rough-spun coat and a stout woodsman's axe from the wagon bed. Not a sword, but steel. He whispered a prayer for the nameless dead. Though what god still listened to Starks, he could not say. On the 15th morning the King's Road appeared. No ribbon of commerce now, but a scar through abandoned harvest. Wagon ruts filled with standing rain, broken mail links, scraps of livery from Frey, Bolton, Lannister. Carrion birds fought over a half-buried dog. Robb's chest tightened, seeing the red and gold thread of a lion rampant ground into mud. The world had shed faces for carrion to claim. Yet, where ruin settles, rumor also roosts. At dusk, he shared a cooka fire with 3 small folk siblings, Maribel, Kern, and tiny Jeremy, who fled Derry after mercenaries sacked its last barley granary. They spoke of a new queen in King's Landing, a foreign child bride who clenched the iron throne in fragile hands. They spoke of the lion of Casterly Rock rotting atop the sept stones, of the king's lair missing these 9 months, of gold cloaks deserting nightly. They spoke of ravens carrying tales, that the Riverlands would bend knee to whichever lord first quelled bandits. They spoke endlessly, as the dispossessed do, weaving fear and hope into the same tattered garment. Robb listened. When they slept, he sat watch until dawn, eyes on the quivering tree line. He should have been dead on Twin's stone floor. Perhaps he still was, and this wandering shade simply sought a purpose grand enough to merit burial. 4 mornings later, he crossed the Blackwater rush by the ruins of what had been a pontoon, now charred planks adrift between muddy banks. He swam, one tightened with oilcloth wrap, stealing across under gray dawn. King's Landing rose from haze like a wounded beast, walls blotched with smoke scars, towers sagging, but its vastness no less humbling. Gull wings circled over mudflats where hulks of burned ships leaned together in silent congress. At high tide, carcasses bobbed like drowned beetles. The stench struck first. Coal soot, dung, fish, blood, and the bitter tang of cold forge. Robb stood in that stink and felt every mile of north between him and this new hell. He could turn, join the ragged caravans bound for Maidenpool, board a ship for Bravos, vanish. But wind off the bay carried a distant horn, thin as a boy's cry, and something in its pitch pulled him forward step by step until the walls swallowed the sun. Westgate took coin he did not have, yet the guard's captain boasted of swift passes to any free sword, owing honor to crown. Robb, hair shorn rough with his own axe jedge, claimed such purpose. I come from Maidenpool seeking service in the city watch. He gave a false name, Rowan, to their ledger. The captain's eyes slid off him. 1,000 refugees passed daily. He waved the northerner through. Inside, squalor pressed like fog. Alleys drowned in mud dight. Beggars, half-armored brutes, dockside whores bleeding bargain, septons crying repentance. Children with hollow bellies clutched at his cloak. He gave them nothing. His coin purse held air and determination alone. Northmen seldom begged. They earned by axe, by oath. So Robb drifted to the Mudgate, where new recruits drilled under the watch of Sir Adam Florent, acting commander of the Gold Cloaks. Staves cracked against shields, echoing between slanted barracks. Robb stood in line, offered his name again, Rowan Rivers, and his arms, axe, strong back, knowledge of northern saddle. Florent tested him with blunted sword. Robb let the sear press, parried clumsily. Lost ground, feigned inexperience. A king's stance might betray him. Best to hold less in his stride. Green, Florent decided, but whole. And hungry. Swear, and you'll eat. Robb knelt in river mud, recited the half-remembered oath. I swear to keep the king's peace, serve the realm, and defend the innocent. The words sizzled iron-hot. In his mouth, they tasted of broken rights and butchered promises, yet he swallowed them, feeling each chain settle across his shoulders. He slept thereafter in a straw-packed loft with 20 strangers. Each man stank of stale fear and stale ambition. Some whispered of deserting by winter, some of clawing high enough to plunder honest folk without sanction. Robb kept counsel. He studied their fights, their gambling, their lies. He ate thin onion broth, cleaned his axe until edge shone, and each dawn he rose before reveille to run the length of the Blackwater quay. Scar tissue drew tight with every stride, knitting strength. Nobody questioned the silence of the man called Rowan Rivers. Weeks became moons. Roland Slint, a sergeant old as rust, sharpened recruits by half-starving them. Robb bore the regiment with the calm of a man who once marched beneath Karstark banners into hail, thick as arrows. He built a reputation for quiet resolve. When quarrels flared in barrack, his stare alone cooled them quicker than a sword unsheathed. Men began to drift behind him during street patrols, trusting his eye. Sergeant Slint soon named him Corporal. But the city itself devoured corporals by the dozen. A bread riot in Flea Bottom left 3 corpses, one stripped nearly to the bone before the gold cloaks pushed back the mob. A septon preaching sedition was dragged from the altar of Blessed Baylor and hanged on his own bell rope. Robb came upon the scene minutes late, cut the body down by instinct, and was nearly stoned by zealots convinced mercy mocked the 7. He learned how easily crowns slip from heads, how even rumor can bleed a realm dry. Yet above that misery, other powers moved. Serpentine, unseen. Varys the spider still threaded whispers through Red Keep's hidden veins. Grandmaster Pacel's pale raven hair had thinned to nothing, yet every letter still passed his tremoring seal. Queen Marguerite Tyrell, so rumor said, wove gardens of alliances, while Boy King Tommen rode mechanical horses in courtyards, roped away from daggers. And somewhere in that hive of intrigue, one vacancy festered in the Kingsguard. Sir Boros Blount had choked on a peach pit, and 7 must always stand 7. Expectation rippled like a sheet dragged beneath storm waves. Knights jostled for vantage. Loras Tyrell's cousins, bold minor lords of the Stormlands, even a Dornish sellsword flaunting twin scimitars. Tourneys scarce fed the city, yet coin poured into a grand melee, staged upon the tourney grounds outside the Dragon Gate. The winner would draw royal eye. The queen herself offered a white cloak as token. City watchmen speculated which champion might seize the day. Robb listened in silence. Each night, he dreamed another moment from the twins. Caitlyn's laugh turned to choke, the crash of music halting like a stabbed heart. Talisa's hand rising to her belly, even as crossbow bolts shredded her. Such ghosts never let him go. During patrol, he found himself touching the stitched scar beneath his linen shirt, recalling Rhaella's calm as she sewed him together. Live, her hands begged. Live and choose. On the eve of the melee, Sergeant Slint waylaid him outside mess room 2 Tup. Rowan, the old soldier growled. You ride and fence better than any dog in rust I've had this year. You should swing in that melee. If one of us wins a white cloak, maybe we get more bread for the lads. Robb met his eye. I am sworn to watch. Sworn watch still bleeds for City. And City loves a hero. Go win them one. That night beneath the barracks eaves, Robb knelt. He opened his axe blade across his lap, staring at twin reflections of moon sliver. Above those slivers, a face still haunted by wolves, by winter, by vows once carved on heartwood. Yet within his chest another vow sparked, the promise he gave before his first battle, when gray banners whipped over White Harbor. I will protect the weak, defend north and south alike, be a shield. Yours was a king's oath once, he told himself. But a cloak of white may yet let you keep it. At dawn the field beyond Dragon Gate boiled with banners. Silk snapped. Argent rose entwined with green, crowned stag, crimson griffin, blue trident of River Run's lesser cousins come seeking favor. Robb wore no sigil. He rented a mount with 3 coppers. Sergeant's gift, and borrowed a helm from watch stores. The yellow enamel hammered away, leaving dull brown steel. He carried his axe and a short sword he seldom used. The lists began at first light. Knights unhorsed each other amid roars and groans. Some yielded gracefully, others clung to saddles until lances cracked spines. Robb watched from shade until his name was called mid-afternoon. Rowan Rivers, Corporal of City Watch, the herald bellowed. Across the list waited Sir Galad of Tarth, a broad-shouldered youth clad head to toe in sapphire blue. His horse stamped impatient clouds of dust. Robb closed visor, muttered thanks for borrowed courage, and felt calm descend. The lance weighed strange in his grip. Northern men fought rarely on tourney fields, but he nudged the bay forward. At the horn they thundered. Galad tilted lance high, hoping to strike helm, but Robb angled low, letting the weight of horse and his own lean shoulders drive point into sapphire shield. Wood shrieked. Robb's lance shattered. Galad reeled, crashed, rolled. Dust plumed. The crowd gasped at the corporal, who unhorsed a knight on first course. Robb dismounted, helped Galad to feet. The knight stared through visor slit, perhaps weighing insult. Then he planted gauntlet on Robb's shoulder, laughing. Well struck, Rivers. Honors murmured through grandstands. Coin clinked in new hands. The mystery northerner advanced. He fought thrice more that day, never unhorsed. Dusk bled violet when the herald climbed dais to announce final bracket. 3 remained: Sir Balon Swan of the Kingsguard, gleaming in moonlit enamel, Sir Loras Tyrell's cousin Eldric, and Rowan Rivers. Gasps rippled. A high-born boy against a white cloak and a phantom. Quarter hour later, Robb faced Sir Balon, across torchlit, circled. The field had been narrowed for foot melee. They circled. Balon wielded longsword and parrying dagger, white cloak fluttering behind silver plate. Robb took axe two-handed. When Balon pressed, Robb shifted sideways, letting the sword kiss past mottling sparks on axe edge. Twice the Kingsguard's blade scored slices along Robb's pauldron. Once the dagger grazed his gauntlet, tearing leather. But on fourth pass, Robb hooked Balon's wrist with steel beard, yanked the white knight forward, and slammed pommel into visor. Balon staggered. Robb pivoted, swept at ankles, and Balon fell hard. Robb's axe hovered at the opening of his gorget. The field fell so silent they could hear Balon's breath. The king's herald lifted both arms. Yield, sir. Balon Swan stared up, then nodded once. Yield. The gasp became a roar that shook tarred stands. Robb offered his hand. Balon accepted, rising to cheers of men who loved an upset more than bread. Eldric Tyrell waited final bout, already favoring his shield arm after spar with Swan. He lunged with half a heart. Robb parried thrice, disarmed him with twist of axe shaft, and the white gold rose of High Garden wilted in a single breath. Rowan Rivers stood champion. Queen Margaery herself descended from the dais, white cloak folded over arms. Her smile, sweet as sunrise, sharp as a spire, revealed nothing of the world's ferocity. Tommen clung shyly to her side, kitten asleep on his shoulder. Sir Jaime Lannister, a step behind, watched with unreadable green eyes. Robb's gut clenched. Stories claimed the Kingslayer cut down the last Targaryen despite oaths sworn. Yet here, Jaime lacked armor, wearing simple crimson surcoat over missing sword hand. Margaery drew near. "Kneel, good sir," she said. "Rise a knight of the Kingsguard and protector of our gentle king." Robb knelt, heart drumming. He felt the brush of the cloak as she settled it across his shoulders. Smelled linen starch, heard cheering wash over him. Jaime's voice, low, spoke the vows. "Swear now your life and honor to the king's service, to keep his secrets, to counsel him faithfully, to obey his commands, to defend his name and person, to protect the innocent, and to guard the realm and its peoples." Robb answered each in calm cadence. The moment Jaime finished, gold cloaks lining the fence stamped shafts in salute. Yet amid thunder of applause, Jaime held his gaze a heartbeat longer than courtesy required. In that green stare flickered recognition, or suspicion. Later, within the Red Keep's antechamber, white rails of marble flanked a corridor smelling of lemonwood polish. Robb, stripped of helm, waited with other sworn brothers while maesters bound Sir Balon's bruised knuckles. Jaime approached. Candles painted his lion's head hair with molten shades. "Rowan Rivers," he said softly. "You joust like no rivers of the Crownlands I've ever seen. And you fight with the footwork of the North." Robb inclined his head. "I had many teachers." "Indeed. One of them must have been a wolf." "What den spat you?" "Mine." Robb's pulse thundered. "A winter den, sir, long buried under snow." Jaime's mouth twisted, more empathy than sneer. "Bury it deeper. Kings and their dogs trust easiest when bones stay hidden. He clapped Robb's shoulder, the same spot Galad had touched. Then he moved on, cloak licking mosaics. That night, ensconced in a modest cell within White Sword Tower's lower level, the upper reserved for lords born, Robb hung his new cloak on a peg beside fresh linen. The silk glowed silver in candlelight, edges embroidered with the blaze of a 7-pointed star. He sat on the narrow cot. Exhaustion made bones feel poured from kettle, yet behind the fatigue, a steady ember glowed. A life discarded at the twins had crawled miles, through mud, through grief, and now found meaning again. He thought of Ned Stark teaching that honor sometimes means the grave. Yet living long enough to serve honor, could that be the greater duty? Robb closed his eyes, inhaled deep. Somewhere inside the keep, Tommen's laughter floated down corridors, light as bells. Somewhere beyond walls, the city groaned in its chains. Somewhere far to the north, winter sharpened. Robb Stark, named Rowan Rivers in white sword rolls, swore to guard a boy king he once marched against. Fate twisted like a river current, unseen but relentless. And in its swirl one wolf, stripped of crown and home, and all dear faces, now wore white, not for surrender, but for promise. He let sleep claim him, knowing dawn would bring weapons drill, whispers of identity, tests from queen and council alike. Let them come. A foundation takes shape beneath weight, and for the first time, since the drums of autumn called banners to war, Robb felt the earth hold him steady. Outside, the sky cleared. A thin sickle moon rose. Beneath its pale arc, 7 towers of the Red Keep stood watch, and in the north window of the White Sword Tower, a lone candle burned through the final hours of night, steadfast against the wind. A.K. Robb woke before dawn, drawn from thin dream-torn sleep by the toll of the Red Keep's hour bell. A dim gray mist seeped through the narrow arrow slit above his cot, thick with the smell of river fog and furnace smoke. The hum of 1,000 restless lives already pulsed beyond the walls, carts grinding over cobbles, gulls shrieking at one another above the black water's brackish swell. He rose, feeling the ache in his ribs like a familiar companion, and dressed in the plain wool gambeson issued to junior brothers. The white cloak he folded with meticulous care, smoothing every crease as though combing a horse's mane. When he fastened it at his shoulders, the silk seemed heavier than plate. Footsteps echoed in the stairwell. Cerberus replacement duties had fallen to Sir Adam Marbrand until a permanent ranking could be named, and Marbrand drilled his knights with a zeal bordering on cruelty. Robb emerged into the circular training yard in time to join a half-circle around the master-at-arms, each man's breath fogging in the pre-dawn chill. The Kingslayer stood apart, arms folded beneath his remaining hand, the ghost of a grin curling his mouth. "Blunted steel today," Sir Adam barked. "Your vows promise skill, not show." Pairs formed. Robb found himself opposite Sir Osmond Kettleblack, whose mustache twitched at the corners like a rat sniffing cheese. Osmond favored a longsword slightly chipped along the fuller, a soldier's blade dressed as knight's. Robb hefted his training axe, its edge dulled to a rounded lip. The first few passes he offered little, letting Osmond press the tempo. Their blades rang beneath the tower's granite, strokes scattering sparks across swept sand. Osmond swung high and fast, hungry for an early bruise to boast of later. Robb gave ground, reading timing, until he spotted the moment Osmond's lead foot slid a hair too far. Robb's axe snapped up, parried the oncoming slash, then twisted to lock hilt against hilt. With a quick pivot, he shoved his shoulder into Osmond's chest, knocking the other man off balance, and snapped the haft of his axe across the inside of Osmond's knee. Osmond collapsed with a grunt. "Yield?" Robb asked quietly. Osmond tossed sand in his direction, more chagrined than injured. Curse your wolf luck." Robb offered a hand to hoist him up. Jamie watched from across the yard, that small grin widening the slightest fraction. Drill ended at sunrise, and Robb took breakfast in the mess. Barley porridge thinned with goat milk, 2 hard-boiled quail eggs, a wedge of brown bread spread with apricot conserve. He ate slowly, listening. Conversations hissed around him. Tommen's cough at court the day before, a Dornish envoy rumored on the horizon, Whispers of last night's riot in the fishmonger's square, where 4 gold cloaks died to stones and spears flung by starving fishers. Every tale prickled his senses. Each new trouble was potential trial, each trial a chance to serve. Mid-morning saw him summoned to the small hall. Marble pillars flanked an aisle leading toward the queen's carved weirwood dais. Queen Margaery sat in slender poise, pale green gown pooling like new leaves at her feet. Around her clustered her Tyrell cousins. Olenna's long shadow still seemed to hover behind the young blooms. And Grand Maester Pycelle, who dabbed at his lips with a scented cloth. Beside the queen's chair, Jaime, dressed this day in crimson and gold, addressed the assembly in a measured baritone. Robb crossed the hall, cloak whispering. "Your Grace," Jaime declared as Robb knelt, "here stands Sir Rowan Rivers, victor at the melee. His record among the Watch speaks of discipline and quiet courage. Many, and no lineage to trouble any High Lord's pride," murmured Sir Garland Tyrell, one eyebrow arched. The implication of bastard blood hung in the air. Robb kept his gaze fixed upon the veined green marble beneath his knees. "A bastard may still serve," he said, voice steady. Queen Margaery leaned forward. "We value service above all. And bastard was once a word our founding monarch bore with honor." She paused, eyes scrutinizing. "Tell me, Sir Rowan, have you any kin who might claim you?" "My kin are far," Robb said, meaning every word. The North felt another continent away. "I claim no lands. Only my oath." A small hush followed. Jaime's chin dipped in approval. Pycelle's bushy brows knitted as though straining memory for a lost fact. Robb's heart hammered, but he let the silence become its own answer. At last the queen nodded. "Rise, Sir Rowan. Your duty begins at once." Ser Balon resumes lead of the morning guard. "You will join him in the royal septie, where his grace prays for those fallen at Blackwater." "That is Ekel." Robb's pulse tightened. A chance to stand within feet of the boy king might spell doom if recognition dawned, yet to refuse was impossible. He bowed low and withdrew, cloak flowing like a strip of winter across the polished floor. Outside, autumn sun smeared the battlements with pale gold. Robb ascended the sept of the Red Keep, a domed sanctum built of pearl stone and stained glass. Censers swung sweet cedar smoke through cool air. Tommen, clad in embroidered velvet the color of ripe peaches, knelt before images of the Seven. 2 septas stood behind him, murmuring quiet devotions. Ser Balon Swan flanked the boy on his right. Robb took post to the left, axe hanging by thigh, back straight as pine. Minutes elongated into an hour, each tick of Tommen's fingering beads, a small metronome. The boy's shoulders tensed and eased in cadence, small hands trembling over carved amethyst. When at last Tommen stood, he looked up at Robb, true up, for Robb's height dwarfed him, and offered a shy smile. "Sir," the king whispered, "you were fierce yesterday. I watched from the rampart." Robb inclined his head, throat dry. "Your grace grants me honor." His eyes widened. "Will you teach me to fight with an axe? My uncle Jaime says axes are for ironborn and butchers, but Sir Lothor says a king should know every weapon." Robb thought of Ned teaching Bran proper stance in Winterfell's yard, patient and relentless. "When your maesters deem you strong enough, I'll teach you the grip. An axe is truth, your grace. It never pretends to be gentle." Tommen beamed. Septus ushered him outward. Robb followed, heart heavy and bright in the same beat. "Protect the innocent," your vows demanded. Could any soul under this roof be more innocent than Tommen Baratheon? By midday, news from the city seeped into the keep. Fishers rioting again, this time near the Hook, claiming taxes had doubled on river catch. Gold cloaks mustered to break the crowd. Robb volunteered for street detail, grateful for distance from courtly gaze. Ser Adam hesitated. New white brothers usually performed palace posts, but then waved him off. Myrish eye shutters of late afternoon dust cast shifting stripes across gull-scoured roofs. Robb and 8 cloaks waded into throngs of anglers waving gutted trout like banners of grievance. Shouts thundered. Children starve while great lords feast, and stones clattered off shields. Robb moved at the fore, cloak hidden beneath a brown half-cape. He kept his axe raised high in display but struck no blows. Instead he barked clear commands: back, give room, lower arms. Each time someone rushed he pivoted, letting shield mates close the gap, pressing flesh back without steel. By dusk, the worst had ebbed. 17 arrested, 2 wounded, none dead. A small triumph by city measure. Night lowered. Robb returned to the White Sword Tower scented with sweat and river slime. Candle in cell nearly spent. He trimmed wick and sat to sharpen his axe proper this time. Edge keen as truth. Candle glow limned the scar down his side, pink and tough. He remembered Raela's cottage. Her last words: wolves never harm me. Go. He wondered if pillagers found her after all. The thought seeded guilt. He prayed softly to old gods and knew that the woman still minded her fields beyond Fairmarket. Midweek clerks delivered scrolls of assignments. Robb drew night patrol within the keep itself. Less hazard, more politics. The outer Bailey corridors whispered of spies. Twice he caught Varys' pale eyes watching from a balustrade. Twice he blinked and the eunuch was gone. In the cannon gallery he nearly stumbled over Prince Oberyn's daughters scurrying behind a tapestry they'd snuck in weeks ahead of the official Dornish embassy. He herded them gently toward their quarters, fending off a barrage of impertinent questions about northern snow and deerwolves. The eldest, Obara, appraised him with sword-minded intensity that reminded him of Arya. The first true threat unfurled 4 nights later. Robb had relieved Sir Preston Greenfield at a narrow stairwell leading up to Maegor's Holdfast. The hour bell tolled thrice past midnight. Torch smoke ribboned along stone, mixing with the tang of bat droppings. Robb's senses prickled before his ears caught the faint grit of leather soles ascending from below. 2 sets, slow, deliberate. He stepped into the stairs curve, axe loose in hand. A shadow rose, then another. Each man carried a knife of blackened steel and wore the half-mask of Silent Sisters, rare attire for men. Their intent shone plain in the set of shoulders, the stealth of step. "Don't," Robb called. "Hold, declare yourselves." They lunged. The first swung high. Robb deflected, hooking with haft to jerk arm wide, then kneed him in gut. The second aimed low, blade seeking tendon. Robb reversed hew, blocked, and riposted with butt spike to jaw. Bone cracked. The man spilled downward. Robb hammered the first across temple, sending him sprawling on stone steps. Both assailants stilled, moaning. A quick search revealed small vials of pale blue syrup, sewn into belt pouches, sleeping draughts or poisons. Footfalls thundered above. Jaime appeared, sword already half drawn. "What devilry!" "Assassins," Robb said. "Disguised." He kicked a mask aside. "They carried poison, likely sought the king's chambers." Jaime knelt, examining vial. "Widow's blood," he observed, nose wrinkling. "Rare outside lease. Someone paid dearly." He studied Robb. "You fought like a man used to knives in dark." Robb cleaned axe blade on the dead man's cloak. "War gives many lessons." Jaime's eyes narrowed. "True. And names are stitched from lessons. I'll have the watch interrogate survivors, if they live till dawn." He stood. "Walk with me." They paced down torch-lined hall. "You remind me of another boy I once knew," Jaime said. He, too, spoke seldom and listened well. "Quiet wolves are the fiercest." Robb's heart rapped. "Starks are said to be grim," he replied softly. Jaime halted, pivoting. Flickering torchlight blurred his expression. "I served with your father once. Ned Stark trusted in honor like a drowning man clutches straw. It killed him." "Or saved him," Robb countered, surprising himself. "His memory saved many." "Does it save you?" Jaime asked. Robb met the Kingslayer's gaze, unflinching. "Daily." Jaime considered, then nodded, as if some calculation resolved. "Guard the king. I'll speak with the queen come morning. These vipers may coil deeper than we see." He strode off, gold cloak snapping. Robb exhaled slow, feeling the world shift one notch. Jaime suspected, but suspicion wielded carefully might become alliance, not doom. The next fortnight passed in tense calm. Tyrell ships unloaded grain in the city harbor, easing food riots. Parchments posted taxation reductions on fish, placating watermen. What? Yet beneath each fix, the stones trembled. The small council argued over Dornish envoys. Margaery pressed for new alliances. Cersei, though imprisoned in her own apartments pending trial for charges relating to the High Sparrow affair, still commanded secret ears. Robb caught one such ear. A sallow pegboy wandering near the Queen Mother's rooms at midnight, and turned him over to Lord Varys for questioning. On that same moon, the north wind carried first hints of winter across Blackwater Bay. Robb stood atop the White Sword Tower battlements, white cloak whipping like a tattered sail. Memory surged, snowflakes on direwolf fur, the pine smell of gray wind's breath. He gripped the parapet. Storm clouds bruised the eastern horizon, but in their churn he glimpsed a tether to home. The north endures, his heart beat, the north endures. A raven arrived from the wall the following day, tied with black ribbon denoting urgency. Maester Pycelle read the scroll during council, and announced wildlings massing north of the Shivering Sea. Tens of thousands. He dismissed it as wild exaggeration. Robb listened, blood stirring. Jon had once written of wildling threat. Jon would now be Lord Commander. A pang of longing knifed him. But Jon thought him dead. The world thought him dead, and ghosts could not ride to war. Late that night, Jaime found him in the practice yard, hacking at a padded dummy under lanterns. Iron lantern rings trembled each time the axe bit. Sweat streamed from Robb's brow, though the air had cooled. Jaime watched in silence until the dummy slumped, shredded. "You fight shadows," Jaime observed. "Sometimes shadows fight back," Robb answered, chest heaving. Jaime tossed him a linen towel. "Council queries your origin. Balon thinks you one of Stannis' reavers turned coat." Robb wiped face. "You? I think it doesn't matter, so long as you hold that axe for Tommen." He leaned against rail, moon silvering his stump. Yet secrets rot from within. Best to choose an ally before rot spreads. "They, sir." Robb weighed the man. Kingslayer reputation blackened every tale told in northern hearths, but here stood a knight missing sword hand, who trained adolescent princes in courtesy and risked life to bar assassins from a boy he barely knew, and a man who spared Robb's mask thus far. "I will guard the king," Robb said. "All else is dust." Jaime smiled faintly. "A lesson I learned too late." Autumn bled into early winter. Storms ripped gulls from the sky above the bay. Sleet rattled parapets like thrown coins. Queen Margaery ordered nightly feasts to keep spirits alight. Tyrell minstrels sang lilting harvest songs, while lords huddled in velvets against the chill. Robb patrolled corridors, posting extra sentries outside Tommen's door. He trained the boy quietly in mornings, teaching stance and balance with wooden axe haft. Tommen laughed each time he over-rotated and tumbled into straw, then scrambled up eager for another go. Septa Eglantine scolded that bruises marred royal dignity. Tommen insisted bruises taught humility. Robb's chest warmed at the boy's stubborn spark. Rumor of assassins persisted. Twice more masked intruders slipped within outer walls. Twice Robb's watch intercepted before they reached inner holdfast. Each attack bore signs of foreign coin, rare poisons, ivory-handled dirks from Yeti, stealth grapnels of Quarthite silk steel. The council blamed disaffected nobles, Essos Sellswords, even Cersei's machinations. Varys whispered darker names. The Golden Company restless in the east, or Aegon Targaryen's rumored claimant sailing from Essos with sell sails. Through it all, Robb remained silent sentinel. But silence could not wholly smother grief. In deepest hours he returned to half-remembered faces. Talisa's laughter, Catelyn's proud eyes, the rumbling bark of gray wind across moon-crusted campfire nights. He carved those memories into new vows, stone laid atop stone to buttress his heart. One snowy dawn he climbed to the rookery, bringing a small parcel of salted cod for the birds. Maester Pylos, younger and slimmer than Pycelle, oversaw messages now. He greeted Robb warmly, curious about the Kingsguard's habit of feeding ravens. "Old gods favor those who honor beasts," Robb said, and Pylos nodded, scribbling. As ravens pecked, Robb held one feather between thumb and forefinger, dark and glossy, like midnight silk. He longed to tie it to a scrap of parchment bearing truth. I survive. I serve under false name. Tell no soul. But to whom? Don Sansa? Either letter might doom them all if intercepted. He tucked the feather behind his ear and descended without writing. That evening, Varys approached him in a gallery overlooking the throne room. The spider's lavender robes whispered like dust. "Such devotion you show, my lord," Varys murmured. "Yet, devotion steeped in sorrow. I sense a tragedy bound tight beneath those wolf-gray eyes." "Nanny." Robb stiffened. "You know me not." "Oh, I know many things," Varys said softly, "and suspect more. But knowledge is a honeyed sword. Wielded poorly, it harms bearer more than foe. I would rather keep certain truths sheathed for the good of the realm." Robb's hand slid to axe but stilled. "Speak plain." A certain northern thunder was thought long silenced, Varys whispered, eyes glistening. "Yet the realm still needs storms. Storms that sweep corruption from halls." Serve the boy earnestly. "Leave past names buried for now. A time may come when wolves must howl again, but not today." He bowed, powdery scalp shining in torch glow, and drifted off. Robb watched him vanish. Relief carried a bitter tang. If Varys knew and had not exposed him, the spider believed him asset, not threat. Asset to what scheme? He exhaled shaky breath. For now, he would hold course. Winter feasts turned thin as stores dwindled despite Tyrell grain. On New Year's after the full moon, Tommen fell ill with chills and cough. Pycelle bled him, ranting old remedies. Robb stood watch through 2 nights as fever racked the boy's small frame. At dawn of the 3rd day, believing Tommen asleep, Robb knelt beside the bed and pressed cool cloth to burning brow. "I won't die yet, will I?" Tommen croaked, startling him. "No," Robb answered. "Your kingdom awaits your strength." "Strength." The boy sighed. "Mother said, strength is mercy. Sir Rowan, if I grow a cruel heart, swear you'll remind me of mercy." Robb's throat thickened. "I swear, by ice and fire, your grace." Tommen drifted back to sleep. By dusk fever broke. Robb permitted himself a breath of gratitude. The next major turn arrived by Raven. Stannis Baratheon, dead on the Wall's stony foothills, slain while assaulting Winterfell. Rumor painted Bolton banners triumphant. Queen Margaery convened council in the Maiden Vault to debate opportunity. The North lacked true warden. Houses squabbled. Tyrell voices pushed for royal envoy. Lannister remnants argued caution. Through it all, Robb kept silent sentinel, heart hammering at mention of Karstark treachery, Manderly resistance, Umber's fracturing. Each report stabbed memory like fresh steel. One night after council, Jaime joined him on Rampart. "Bolton's route in Winterfell now," the Kingslayer said, voice low. "They'll send south for recognition. The Queen may name Roose warden if no rival rises." Robb's nails bit palm. A flayed man cannot wear honor. True. But politics seldom smell of honor. Jaime studied him. If a northern heir emerged, someone with claim and following, realm might back him over a dread lord. But such heirs are ashes, they say. "Some ashes burn," Robb breathed. Jaime reached into tunic, drew out a small bundle, a braided strip of direwolf fur bound around a broken arrow shaft. "I found this among trophy chests pilfered from the twins. Thought you might value it." Robb's breath caught. Gray Wind's fur, unmistakable coarse gray tipped white. His hand trembled as he accepted. Jaime continued, "When time comes that you choose to stop hiding, remember you have at least one Lannister not sworn to kill you." Robb swallowed. "Why?" The Kingslayer gazed over the sleeping city. "Because I'm tired of ghosts, and perhaps because the Boy King deserves more honest aid than politics provides." He offered a brittle grin, then strode off. Robb clutched the fur, feeling the ghost of his direwolf stir within memory, a low rumble of strength. Days shortened. Snow sometimes fluttered even this far south. The city grew harsher, ice slick on gutters, beggars freezing in doorways. Robb convinced Zerbalon to allocate spare cloaks and stale bread from keep larders to hungry crowds outside the mudgate. The gesture eased tension but strained stores. Some gold cloaks grumbled at the bastard knight who favored rabble. Robb answered with example rather than rebuke, sharing his own supper rations, walking cold streets each night. One such patrol, he encountered Lady Sansa's childhood friend Jean Poole, clad in threadbare velvet, bartering body for copper to feed her younger cousins. Recognition slammed him like mace. He guided her to a warm sept, pressed a silver into trembling hand, and swore priest to arrange safe lodging. As she wept gratitude, pain cleaved his chest. The fates of his sisters unknown, yet tragedies multiplied. Back in the keep, Pycelle's heart finally stuttered to stillness one winter dawn. Rumor blamed chill. Whisperers blamed poison. Citadel sent Archmaester Valinor south to assume chain. Varys vanished same week, leaving only a scent of lavender and dust. Council panicked. Robb wondered if Spider's exit signaled storm front looming. Weeks later, the Dornish embassy at last arrived. Prince Quentyn Martell, dour and sunburnished, and his younger sister Princess Arianne, eyes simmering with heat even amid winter wind. Feasts resumed in gilded splendor. Robb stood guard at Arianne's left shoulder during banquet, hearing her trade barbs with Margaery draped in rose-scented diplomacy. At times her gaze flicked to Robb, curiosity smoldering. He stared straight ahead, though something in her regard unsettled him, as though she sensed too much. After feast's third course, Arianne excused herself to the terrace overlooking Blackwater. Robb accompanied, hand on axe. Snowflakes spiraled in torch glow. "Cold, Sir Rowan?" she asked, voice velvety. "I have known colder," he said. Arianne tilted head. "Northern cadence in your vowels. Yet you wear no sigil." "I wear the crowns." She smiled, but sadness tinged edges. "Sigils can lie. In Dorne we tattoo serpents on skin so truth cannot be stolen. Perhaps you should try ink instead of silence." "Damtaro." Robb said nothing. She leaned near, whispering through snow. "We both carry secrets, I think. But unlike you, my secret is doomed if this icy court finds it. I know what it is to bear two faces." Her breath ghosted. "I hope your faces never war within." She swept inside, leaving him with Blackwater wind. By full winter, the realm trembled anew. Letters arrived from Braavos claiming Iron Bank backed a Targaryen pretender. Young Aegon riding Sel's words toward Storm's End. Rumor soared swifter than ravens. Lords rescinded oaths in anticipation. Margaery sought hostages as insurance. Jaime counseled caution. Tyrell Bannerman seethed. Amid that chaos, Robb's identity finally slipped. A dusty letter from Lady Smallwood reached the keep, addressed to Sir Rowan Rivers, delivered by a one-eyed courier, flagged for his odd insistence. Robb intercepted and read in cell. The parchment bore careful script. "We saw a wolf crossing wheat north of Fairmarket, cloak white as snow, eyes of storm. We remember your kindness. Wolves must hunt where packs gather. The old gods keep your path. Ren." No name, but enough. Yet the courier also sought coin for return to mother. Robb paid, anxious. Unfortunately, the transaction witnessed by a squire who later gossiped. Word reached Kettleblack, then Cersei's Gaoler, then trickled upward until Kingsguard meeting thrummed with rumor. The new knight consorted with smallfolk spies. Robb's sense netting tightened. Days later, Sir Osmond cornered him near Armory. "Some say you're Crowborn rebel, Sir Rowan. Mind telling why a Fairmarket shepherd calls you wolf?" Robb met his leer with granite calm. Superstitions breed in winter. But suspicion spread. Jaime deflected inquiry where he could. Varys' absence left Robb minus a secret ally. And across the sea the Targaryen host landed at Cape Wrath, flaming banners of red and black. Council declared a grand muster of loyalist houses. Naval levies readied. Robb assigned to lead Tommen's personal guard on royal progress through city to rally morale. The procession wound from Dragon Gate to Street of Sisters, banners snapping, trumpets bright. Crowds cheered half-hearted, many eyes hollow. Snow spun through sunshafts. Tommen sat straight, cheeks flushed with excitement. Robb rode beside, scanning rooftops. Near Garen's cut, crossbow twang split air. Bolt hissed past Robb's helm, buried in Carpenter's signboard. Panic erupted. Gold cloaks swarmed ahead. Robb swung from saddle, shielded Tommen with cloak as more bolts whistled. He spotted assassins on a balcony. 2 cloaked silhouettes. Axe in hand, he charged through swirling throng, vaulted Ale's stall, sprinted upstairs of an adjoining inn. Doors burst. Inside corridor smelled of vinegar and straw dachau. One assassin spun, dirk gleaming. Robb blocked and hammered with axe haft, sending him sprawling. Second assassin leapt through open window. Robb followed instinctively, plunging after into narrow alley. Impact knocked breath out. He rolled, rose. The assassin sprinted. Robb gave chase, boots skidding on ice. They raced through peddlers' stalls, scattering geese. Robb's ribs flared, but he forced lungs. Alley branched. Assassin vaulted a fence. Robb vaulted too, tackling him beneath tangle of laundry. Mask slid, revealing a gaunt youth not yet 20. Eyes wild, he slashed. Robb caught wrist, twisted until dagger dropped. "Who sent you?" he hissed. The boy spat blood. Whisper mad. "The son of dragons rises. Lions must fall." Cyan foam bubbled at his lips, poison hidden in tooth. He convulsed and went still. Shouts rang, gold cloaks closing. Robb stood, breathing ragged. The boy's last words rang louder than bells. "Dragons, duck pie." Pretender now striding stormlands would not rest until throne toppled. The war Robb once fought seemed child's tale compared to this storm. Sir Adam praised Robb's quick action, but casualty lists grew. 4 gold cloaks dead, 2 stable boys trampled. Tommen unhurt yet shaken. Queen's council demanded answers. Kettleblack argued infiltration meant traitors within the watch. Eyes turned to the newest brother. When Robb entered tower that night, Jaime awaited. "They convene inquiry tomorrow," he warned. "You must prepare truth or lie beyond reproach." Robb stared at blood flaked on gauntlet. "Truth has claws." Jaime exhaled. "And lies bite their masters. Choose carefully." Robb paced cell like caged direwolf. Could he keep mask while suspicion coiled? Each passing hour increased risk that exposure would brand him oathbreaker twice over. First crown, now cloak. Yet reveal himself, and he might sway Northerners against Bolton Butcher, rally realm against dragons. But would Tyrells accept a Stark, once dubbed traitor? Would Lannisters? He lit candle stub, placed Grey Wind's first strip before flame. Memory burned. Banners, drums, mother's last breath. He knelt. "Old gods, guide me," he whispered. "Father, guide me." Long heartbeats. Later clarity washed in like meltwater. He rose, shoulders squared. If fate demanded he sheath name, he would, for Tommen's sake, for realm's fragile peace, until moment served greater good. But inquiry must be met with steel of spirit. Morning sun brought him before full council in Queen's ballroom. High garden silk drapes billowed, candles flared reeking sweet. Marguerite, Jaime, Pycelle's successor Valinor, Garland, Kettleblack, even Cersei, escorted by silent sisters glowering behind veil. Tommen sat small on lion-carved chair. Questions fired. Where born? Why join watch? Why letters from Riverlands? Robb answered calm, weaving half-truths. Born in a minor river holdfast. Served Sellsword captain. Tired of blood price. Sought redemption. He admitted to aiding small folk. A vow to protect the innocent does not end at walls. Some murmured approval. Others scoffed. Kettleblack pressed. "You fought like a seasoned northern captain at the melee." "Explain that." "I rode with northern levies once." Robb's gaze did not waver. "War teaches." Garland leaned in. "Tell us which levies." Robb hesitated. Heart thundered. In that pause, candle hissed, as the world leaned close. Voices overlapped. Tommen's small voice cut through. "Enough." The hall stilled. The boy king stood, face drawn but steady. Sir Rowan saved my life twice over. That is truth. If any doubt his honor, they doubt mine for choosing him. In a silence. Thick. Margary's eyes shimmered. Pride, maybe calculation. Jaime masked smile. Garland inclined head. Kettleblack rumbled indignation but fell quiet. Inquiry adjourned with no charge. After court, Jaime clasped Robb's forearm. The boy is fond of you. Guard that gift, king's favor is fickle. Robb nodded. I will. That dusk, a lone raven settled on his tower sill, bearing parchment, sealed plain. Robb cracked wax. Inside, a single line. Winterfell remembers. He swallowed. Someone in North still believed. Hope flared. He retied message, tucked it within cloak lining. Then he sat to pen reply. Not in his name, but in Ghost's voice. Send word when North is ready to howl. The white wolf guards the cub of lions. Keep faith. No sigil, no signature. He sealed with droplets of candle wax and pressed coin edge for mark. Maester Pilas would send at dawn. Outside, snowflakes drifted past lanterns. Robb stepped onto balcony, breathing frost. Beyond city, realm balanced on blades. Dragons crossing seas, lions clinging to power. Roses blooming amid snow, snakes coiling beneath sand. Somewhere in battered Winterfell, a real North waited. Robb Stark, called Rowan Rivers in white, wrapped his cloak tight. He did not know what morrow would birth. Battlefields, betrayals, perhaps his unmasking. But he vowed each dawn to rise and guard the innocent, whether crowned or common. Wolves endured. He would endure. The wind keened through crenellations, sounding to his ears like the distant howl of direwolves gathering across frozen field. He closed his eyes and listened until the last candle guttered out behind him, leaving only winter's breath and the steady rhythm of a heart that had died once but beat on, stronger for every scar. Gay. The morning after the secret raven flew north, Robb dreamed of snow, not a drifting curtain but a deep smothering shroud that erased the sharp black bones of Winterfell until all towers lay buried. In the dream he pressed a torch against the white and saw the snow ignite, tongues of pale flame licking upward like ghost fire. He woke in sweat, the taste of ash in his mouth, and the bells of King's Landing tolling the 7th hour. He rose, splashed icy water over his face, and buckled on the white cloak that had grown heavier each day. The silk now weighted by the memory of every lie it hid. Down in the great yard lanterns still burned from the night watch, and torches guttered in the jaws of lion-headed sconces, their light crimsoning the churned slush underfoot. A page brought word that Queen Margaery had summoned the Kingsguard, and by the time Robb reached the council chambers, he found 6 thrones arrayed like a crescent moon around the painted table of Westeros, each holding a man in white. Jaime sat at the apex, his gilded stump resting on the helm in his lap, a plume of pale hair falling over his collar. When he saw Robb, he dipped his head in the barest nod. Acknowledgement, caution, warning, all compressed into that minute gesture. Tyrell lords lined the walls in brocade and rose-scented fur, humming with the faint tremor that precedes calamity. At the foot of the table stood Prince Quentyn and Princess Arianne Martell. Flame-bright silks half hidden beneath riding cloaks rhymed with road dust. Their father's banner, the spear-pierced sun, hung flaccid behind them, its orange faded almost to rust by the gray winter light pouring through the arched windows. Margaery addressed the hall. The crown has received word from the Stormlands. Griffin's roost has fallen. Stonehelm petitioned our mercy at dawn. The armies of the so-called Aegon advance upon Storm's End. Her voice never wavered, but her knuckles showed white where they clutched the balustrade of the dais. We will respond. Robb studied her. In the months since he'd knelt for his cloak, she had grown steel roots. Gone was the lilting girl of courtly gardens, replaced by a queen whose smiles cut. She pointed to a lacquered coffer on the table. A Tyrell squire opened it to reveal a half-burned parchment written in a swift SOC hand. The Iron Bank recognizes the debts of the 7 kingdoms. We therefore recognize the sovereign who will pay them. Jaime picked up the letter, scanned it, and set it down with a snort. Banks have long memories but short courage. They place one foot on whichever deck seems driest. His green eyes flicked to Quentin Martell. And Dorn? Quentin's reply was quiet. Dorn waits. We do not rush headlong into storm clouds. Ariane smiled. All slow poison. But we do not shrink from the sky's roar either. Robb felt the room tighten, threads of alliance pulling taut. The Dornish could tip the scales, but at a price. He listened, silent as frost, while lords parried with velvet words. Yet beneath the debate he sensed the deeper tide. Tommen's realm stood on sand turned quick. Another war whispered at the gates. When at last the council adjourned, Jaime drew Robb aside. The North. He kept his voice below the clatter of departing courtiers. Ravens say the Manderleys defy Bolton. The Umbers split between Smaljun's ghost banner and Crowell's fear of flaying. If the crown names a warden now, it will be Roose. He searched Robb's face. Unless someone else claims it. Robb wiped a bead of melting snow from his brow. Claim with what army? Sometimes an idea marshals a host faster than gold, Jaime said. Robb shook his head. If I ride north revealed, I fracture the crown's peace and leave Tommen prey. Snow will bury half the levies before they reach the neck. I stay. Jaime placed his good hand on Robb's shoulder. Then wear your ghost skin well. That evening, Robb took Tommen to the small tiltyard for lessons. The boy was pale, circles under his eyes from the assassin's bolts. But determination burned there too. Robb handed him a practice axe, half the weight of a real one, the haft bound in waxed linen for grip. Remember, he said, guiding Tommen's stance. Your feet hold your crown. Lose your balance, and you gift the blade to your foe. Tommen nodded, swung, stumbled. They drilled until dusk smeared the sky violet. Septa Eglantine fretted over his bruised forearms, but Tommen only grinned. A king unbruised is a king untested, he quoted. Robb's own words returned to him, and shame and pride warred in his chest. After the lad was led off to supper, Robb remained, cleaving the chill air with his own axe until sweat steamed from him. Each stroke rang against the silence, and with every ring he pictured a flayed man toppled, a direwolf unfurling its banner over Winterfell's soot. Yet every time he finished the sequence, the vision dissolved, replaced by Tommen's small form crumpling under a falling tower or a stray quarrel. Duty split along two roads, and neither path left his soul intact. That night, the wind shifted. An hour before dawn, a horn blast shivered through the keep. 3 short, 2 long hour. Gold cloak scrambling in the yard shouted one word. Fire! Robb bolted from his pallet, yanking on boots. From the battlements he saw the glow flaring against the eastern wall, a bloom of orange devouring the stables. The smoke reeked of pitch and horsehair. He charged down stone steps 2 at a time. Barrels of river water already rolled across the yard, but a separate blaze licked at the straw lofts above the kennels, too far for sparks alone. Sabotage. Robb barked orders, organized a bucket line, grabbed a wool cloak to smother flames. Amid the confusion, shrieks rent the air. Stallions screaming, trapped. He plunged into the thick of smoke, found a gelding kicking at a locked stall, smashed the bar with the back spike of his axe. The animal barreled past, nearly trampling a stable boy. Robb shoved the lad clear, lunged for another stall, but a timber cracked overhead. Heat blasted his face, sparks bit skin. Someone seized his elbow and yanked him clear just as the loft collapsed. Robb stumbled into open air, coughing char. He looked up to see Sir Balin Swan's sooty grin. Even wolves shouldn't roast tonight, Balin said, thrusting a bucket into his hands. Together they battled until sunrise crimsoned the sky. At morn's first bell the fires died. 23 horses lost. A dozen burned men, but the keep still stood. Jaime inspected the charred beams. Accelerant soaked, he concluded, flinging a pitch-black shard aside. Someone meant chaos, not conquest. While we stamped flames, assassins could have slipped through any gate. Robb tasted bile. Check the royal apartments. They found Tommen safe, but a page dead outside the door, throat opened ear to ear. The queen wept silent tears over the boy's body while Tommen clung to Sir Loras's sleeve, cheeks wet with smoke and fear. That afternoon, inquiry sharpened into witch hunt. Loras blamed Dornish. Dornish pointed to Cersei's gallows. Cersei screamed Tyrell treachery. Amid the chaos, Varys' absence felt a void where once whispers flowed. Robb watched factions fracture like river ice. Twilight cast long blades into the throne room when a raven arrived from Old Town. Archmaester Valinor unrolled the parchment before the court. The Citadel confirms Queen Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen has set sail from Meereen. 2 surviving dragons fly ahead. An audible hush followed the words. For 2 heartbeats, no one drew breath. Dragons in truth. Fire that siege engines could not match. Robb's pulse drummed as memory of Bran's stories leapt to life. Black wings over Harrenhal. Walls, weeping molten stone. If dragons flew for Westeros, then this realm perched on the brink of a war no cloak could shield. That night he climbed the White Sword Tower with Jaime. Snowflakes drifted under the torchlight, hissing against the iron brazier. Jaime poured Arbor Red into 2 tin cups, handed one over. "I once slew a king to save a city," he murmured. "Now I might die saving a boy from 3. Robb sipped. The wine burned like regret. If dragons come, walls fail. We'll need allies. Dorne. Jaime shrugged. They nursed dragon poison in the desert for a century. Tyrells? They fear fire in their fields more than swords. You're north. He turned and faced Robb squarely. Has Winterfell heard your howl yet? I sent word, Robb admitted. The confession pulled like a thorn. Raven to a friend I trust. But ravens can be shot. Jaime leaned against the crenelle. You need more than ravens. You need wolves. 2 days later, wolves arrived. At dawn, outriders stormed the Rose-Red Gate. 30 armored men under the sigil of a white merman with trident, House Manderly. Behind them rode 20 green-cloaked archers, banners of House Reed, and at their fore a gaunt woman in grey furs, spear slung across her back. The city guard moved to bar them. The woman dismounted, raised both hands, and demanded parley with Queen Margaery and the Kingsguard. In the throne room she removed her hood, revealing sharp cheekbones, hair the color of iron filings. I am Meera Reed, daughter of Lord Howland, who fought by Eddard Stark's side at the Tower of Joy. Her voice carried, clear as iced water. I bring confession and claim. Gasps rippled. Robb's breath locked. Meera continued. The North rejects the flayed tyrant. We come seeking the rightful warden. Robb Stark, king of the North, whose bones Walder Frey never found, whose banner yet lives. Nimue. All eyes turned to the Kingsguard line. Robb felt their weight like hammers. Silence stretched, snapping taut. Jaime's gaze touched him, an unspoken choice. Robb stepped forward. He released the clasp at his throat. The white cloak pooled at his feet. Snowfall on marble. He let the hall see the direwolf fur strip tied around his arm, the scar beneath his jaw, the gray eyes that had once glared across the twins' dais. I am Robb Stark, he said, and the words thundered louder than any horn. I died once to treachery, but the gods gave me back for duty. I swore a new oath to guard the innocent, and I broke no vow today. Yet I will not stand idle while my people are flayed. Chaos exploded. Tyrell lords shouted. Lannister guards reached for hilts. Tommen rose from his seat, face bloodless. Sir Rowan? He whispered. Robb knelt before him. Your grace, I was Rowan so long as you needed Rowan. I am still your shield. Let no man say Robb Stark would harm you. Margaery's voice cracked like a whip. Arrest. She scanned the dais. No consensus. Jaime walked to Robb's side, laid his stump gently atop Robb's shoulder. No, he declared. The Kingsguard serves the crown, and the crown commands peace, while truth is weighed. Cersei's laugh was jagged glass. Kingslayer, you coddle traitors. Jaime rounded on her, eyes green flame. Better a man of honor than a mother of vipers. Lords shouted over each other. Dornish smiled behind folded hands. Meera Reed stood unmoved. At last Tommen banged a ceremonial mace on the arm of his throne. Iron resounded, and the hall stilled. "I decree," the boy king said, voice quavering yet clear, "that Robb Stark shall remain Lord Commander of my Kingsguard, until guilt be proven. The realm needs every sword, and I need him." He looked to Robb, eyes pleading forgiveness. "Stay." Robb bowed his head. "I stay." The decree sparked fresh uproar, but Jaime, Balin, and even Loras closed ranks around the throne. Mira Reed returned to her company with a promise of later audience, her satisfaction hidden in wolf-bright eyes. That night, Robb stood in the crypt of Baelor's, sept before Ned Stark's bones, returned to the capital after the war at Catelyn's insistence. He knelt, touched cool stone, and spoke softly. "Father, I failed once. I falter again, yet some piece of me is still the son you taught. Guide me." He sensed rather than heard movement behind. Arianne Martell stepped into the candle's circle, dusk-rose cheeks shadowed. "Your secret sings through the halls," she whispered. "My father taught me to hear every song. Will the north rise for you?" "Nemnando." Robb rose, staring at the carved direwolf on the sarcophagus. "It rises whether I lead or no, but guided, it might spare thousands." Arianne approached, fingertips grazing stone. "Dorne hates Boltons more than Lannisters. We share a taste for red vengeance. Yet dragons approach, alliances wane. Perhaps a prince in the south and a wolf in the north might teach the Dome of Kings to quake." Robb eyed her sideways. "You gamble on long odds?" "I gamble on honor," she said. "Your father saved my father's life at the Trident. Debt lingers." "Demacasal." Before he could answer, a shadow flickered, Varys emerging from behind a pillar as if born from the dust. "Forgive my interruption," the eunuch lilted. "I too appreciate balanced ledgers." Robb's hand found axe haft. "You vanished." "I listened." Varys spread delicate hands. The realm changed tune. Dragons hum. Wolves howl. It is time for a new choir. His smile held no warmth. "I can open gates in the north, not by steel, but by ink. Letters bearing your hand will ride swifter than armies." Robb weighed the spider's silk words. "At what price?" "Peace," Varys replied. "Or at least, the chance of it, if wolves and lions stand together when fire falls." Robb looked at the eunuch, then at Arianne, whose dark eyes shone with a dangerous hope. "Very well," he said. "We move before roofs burn." Letters flew. Over the next fortnight, ravens beat wings northward. To White Harbor, to Barrowton, to Bear Island, each bearing the direwolf seal pressed into new wax. Mira rode out under covert escort, slipping beyond the walls with her Manderly and Reed retinues to spread word along the King's Road. Jaime drilled the city garrison, doubling sentries. Robb resumed patrols, but now every watchman whispered, Stark in awe or fear. Winter deepened. One dawn, a great horn blast rolled across Blackwater Bay, echoed by the crash of distant surf. Robb sprinted to the battlements, spyglass raised. Out upon the heaving slate water, a shape approached. Sleek as a sea serpent, sails the color of dried blood. Atop the mast unfurled a banner of 3 roaring heads. Dragonstone's fleet had arrived, bearing Queen Daenerys Targaryen. Panic rippled through the docks. Tyrell ships scrambled to unfurl. The royal fleet, ragged from years of neglect, mustered under Sir Imry Beckenridge. Robb joined Jaime atop the ramparts of the Mudgate. "That," Jaime muttered, "is a war no walls will win." Robb watched as great iron chains were cranked up across the mouth of the Blackwater, the ghost of Tyrion's wildfire still staining stones a sickly green. "Wildfire again?" he asked. Jaime shook his head. "Stores half spent. And a dragon laughs at green flame." An hour later, an envoy rode ashore. A squat war galley flying white flag. From it stepped Tyrion Lannister, face scarred, eyes glittering with smoky amusement. He bowed before the gate, called for parley. Queen Margaery and the council met him beneath a silk pavilion on the shattered wharf, with Robb and 2 Kingsguard flanking. Tyrion inclined his head toward Robb. "Your resurrection is a surprise, even to me, your grace." I thought my sister the expert in impossible births. He turned back to the council. My queen offers terms. Bend the knee, relinquish the boy, and keep your heads. Gasps. At all. Margaery's voice chilled. Tell Daenerys the 7 kingdoms kneel to no conqueror born across the sea. Tyrion sighed. I warned her you'd say that. But she is merciful. She will give you until moonrise to reconsider. He turned, cloak snapping, and marched back to the galley. That evening, fire blossomed on the horizon, dragon flame on the wing. The defenders on the walls shrank as Drogon's vast shadow eclipsed torchlight. He soared once above the bay, a black constellation against dying daylight, then vanished into clouds, testing, measuring. Inside the keep, the factions shattered anew. Tyros demanded retreat to Highgarden. Lannisters shouted traitor. Dornish remained silent. Cersei, from under guard, cursed dragons and Starks alike. Tommen, pale as milk, clutched Robb's gloved hand. Can a dragon break the Red Keep? He whispered. Robb knelt. Stone breaks, courage does not. We will shield you. That night Robb and Jaime climbed to the Tower of the Hand to plan. Wind howled through arrow loops, rattling parchment. Jaime spread maps. If dragons strike at dawn, we must stall until ally armies reach Maidenpool. Manderley's march, reeds travel the neck. 2 moons, perhaps. He exhaled. We need time we don't have. Robb looked past him, watching snow swirl across the Black River. I know one way to win time. Speak. I ride to the Dragon Queen, alone. A king returned from death may sway her, or at least buy parole for Tommen. Jaime stared. A suicide ride. Perhaps, but wolves gamble in winter. Robb rolled up the map. If I win her ear, dragons may not fly. If I fail, I die once more, and the keep still falls. Jaime's jaw tightened. I have few friends, Stark. Don't make me lose another. Robb clasped his wrist. Keep the boy breathing. Tell him mercy is strength. Before dawn, Robb donned plain leathers, no white silk. Only a small direwolf badge at his throat. He slipped from the postern gate with a single escort. Mira returned under night's cover to guide him across the bay by Hidden Fisher's skiff. The water lay black as a mirror of obsidian. Oars hissed, dipping. Halfway across, the sky lit with faint orange where Dragonstow's fleet anchored, lanterns bobbing like drunken stars. On deck of the flagship Windsinger, Tyrion greeted them, lantern raised. We expected envoys, not ghosts. Robb climbed the boarding net, boots slick. Take me to your queen. They escorted him through narrow stairs smelling of tar and dragon smoke, until he emerged onto a high deck. Stars wheeled overhead. And there she was, Daenerys Targaryen, silver hair braided with carnelian beads, violet eyes reflecting every lantern flame. A small white dragon perched on her shoulder, no bigger than a dog, while above the masthead the black behemoth Drogon circled, wings creaking against the air. Robb knelt. Your Grace, I am Robb Stark of Winterfell. Her eyes narrowed. They said you were dead. So did I. Yet winter revives what honor buries. Tyrion cleared his throat. Khaleesi, the North may prove crucial. She silenced him with a lift of hand. Why come, Wolf? To spare the innocent. King's Landing holds a child sovereign. Slaughter will birth only ashes. Parley with me. Win the North instead of burning it. Daenerys stepped close, dragonling chirping. Boltons rule your North. Not for long, he said. Wolves gather. We oust the Flayer and kneel to no Flayer's ally. You seek broken chains. Mine is first to break. Silence. Water slapped hull. Drogon keened overhead. At last she spoke. My dream showed snow turning to flame. I did not know if snow meant winter or a man. Perhaps both. Very well, Snowwolf. Speak your terms. He outlined them. Dragons hold back, blockade the city, allow evacuation of small folk. Tommen remains king in name under Daenerys regency until the realm convenes great council. Bolton decrees revoked. North granted self-rule under Stark as sworn wardens to crown. Tyrion's brows rose. Generous for one who owns no keep yet. Daenerys paced. Dragons are not bargained like mules. Robb met her gaze. Nor are children burned like straw. Choose the higher road now, and your throne roots in justice. Dawn pinked the east. She halted, looking to rising light. I will stay my wings 3 days, she said. If by then the gates open and the Child King kneels, King's Landing will know no fire. If not, ash will fall. Deliver this, Robb Stark. He bowed. I give you my word. A skiff carried him ashore by noon. Within the mudgate, lords clamored for news. Jaime met him halfway up the pike stair. Robb's face told the tale before his lips. 3 days. Turmoil followed. Some hailed reprieve. Others decried surrender. The small council fractured outright. Tyrell's whispered flight. Dornish envoy vanished. Arianne gone. Her guard with her. Varys too slipped away once more. Robb convened the Kingsguard that night, under the Sept's glass-painted dome. Candlelight scattered rainbows on white cloaks. He spoke plainly of terms, of duty. A crown forged in mercy is harder to shatter than steel, he said. Even Kettleblack listened. But outside that fragile peace, Cersei plotted. Before dawn of the second day, she escaped confinement, aided by hooded allies. Robb discovered the breach at first bell. 3 jailers dead, cell empty, tunnel to the city sewers yawning. He and Balon led pursuit down fetid passages where their boots splashed through decades of filth. Torchlight danced on stone. At a junction they found fresh prints leading toward the great Septel. They followed, bursting into an undercroft beneath Beeler's marble floor. And there Cersei waited, hands bound with sinew around a clay jar glowing sickly green. Wildfire. Stay back, she hissed, face gaunt. Eyes blazing. 1 step, and we all burn. Let dragon bitch rule a pyre. Tears streaked soot-smeared cheeks. I will not bow. Robb eased forward, palms out. Your sons need you alive. My son is already dead to me, fed to wolves and roses. She shook, jar sloshing. I will take the city with me. Balon inched right. Robb kept her gaze. If you break that jar, dragons need not fly. Only maggots will feast. Is that your throne? For the span of a heartbeat, grief flickered naked. A mother bereft, a queen broken. Then her jaw hardened. She hurled the jar. Robb dubbed that. His fingers closed round slick clay mid-arc. He hit the stone, jar cradled to chest. Balon's shield crashing over him. The wildfire did not shatter. The lid cracked. Green glow oozed. Acrid vapor burned nostrils. Robb rolled, sliding the jar away, shouting for sand. Balon heaved sacks over the seeping fire, smothering the vapor. Guards rushed in, seized Cersei screaming. Later, above, city bells tolled again, this time in thanksgiving. But Robb sat outside the sept coughing emerald flame from lungs. Hands blistered. Jaime found him, sank beside. Twice you saved us. If dragons spare us now, history must name you twice crowned. Then cat. Robb laughed raw. History is written by quills, not axes. On the dawn of the 3rd day, white cranes wheeled above the bay as envoys rode out beneath a gold and crimson banner, intertwined with a 3-headed dragon. At the fore, mounted on a gray gelding, rode Tommen Baratheon, crown gleaming, face solemn. Robb and Jaime flanked him, white cloaks billowing. Margaery remained to manage court. Tyrell's shields lined the wharf in silent salute. Halfway down the causeway, Tommen dismounted before Daenerys' landing pavilion. He walked alone across damp sand until he knelt, crown in gloved hands. Drogon perched atop a cliff beyond, wings mantled like judgment. I yield my city, Tommen declared, voice trembling yet unbroken. In hope my people shall live. Daenerys approached, lifted the golden crown, and placed it back upon his brow. Rule beside me until you come of age, she said, loud enough for shore and ship to hear. Peace is forged in shared steel. Cheers rose, ragged, uncertain, but growing. Robb exhaled, a weight sliding from shoulders. For one heartbeat winter seemed less cruel. But peace is a wheel, and wheels turn. 2 weeks later, ravens arrived. Ramsay Bolton slain beneath Winterfell's walls, flayed banners burned. A northern host, Manderley, Reed, Glover, Mormont, hailed Robb Stark, Warden of the North, and begged his return. Daenerys granted leave. Tommen pressed a Stark sigil brooch into his hand, boyish eyes shining. Jaime clasped forearm in farewell. At the King's Gate, Robb mounted a smoky gray destrier gifted by Arianne. Mira Reed and a column of wolf-cloaked riders waited. As gates groaned open, snowflakes kissed his beard. He looked back once, at battlements glittering gold, at a boy king waving, at a silver queen standing beside him, with dragons curled on her arms. Then Robb Stark turned north, white cloak replaced by storm-gray wool, fringed with direwolf fur. The road stretched beneath an iron sky, and far ahead he sensed Winterfell's hearth calling. Its stones eager for a son, thought lost. Around him hooves pounded. Above, crows wheeled. And somewhere in that wind he heard the low, rolling song of wolves gathering for the long night. A harmony older than thrones. He spurred his horse, and the company rode on toward the snowbound horizon, where duty, grief, and hope twisted together like the branches of the heart tree, red leaves whispering that even in deepest winter, the sap of honor runs warm.